Draco looked down at his prescription. Melatonin, it said. His doctor had prescribed it to him when he told him about his insomnia and the trouble of falling asleep. He wondered if it actually helped, since nothing he had done so far came even close to falling asleep at a decent time. It was annoying, and even his work was suffering because of it. Not to forget his mood, of course. He was snappish, tired, annoyed, often nodded off at inconvenient times, and most of all he felt miserable. So he finally contacted a doctor and he prescribed him some melatonin. He had advised him to take half a pill 2 hours before he usually went to sleep, but needed to keep in mind to take it before midnight. If it wasn't enough, he could use a whole pill. Draco sighed and joined the queue in front of him. A yawn escaped him and he covered it with the back of his hand just as someone bumped into him. The familiar prickle of annoyance flew to the forefront of his mind and he turned around with a frown. A man with dark hair, ugly glasses and green eyes smiled sheepishly at him. "I'm sorry, I stumbled." Draco released an annoyed breath and turned back around, nearly tapping his foot. He stopped the annoying motion before it had even begun. God, he just wanted his damn pills and get back to work. He was sure his employees had worked themselves in a frenzy. They often did when he wasn't around. After a minute the queue moved along, making Draco the 7th in line. A foot stepped on his heel and he turned around in annoyance again to see the flushed face of a dark-haired man again. "Sorry." Draco bit back his first retort. He wasn't about to start an argument just because the man was clumsy. "Just make sure you don't do it again." He turned around with a sigh again, feeling slightly guilty as he spotted the ashamed face. It just wasn't his day. The tap-tap sound of his foot was loud on the stone floor and he couldn't even be asked to stop it. The line just wouldn't move on, and he only permitted this outward sign of annoyance. Finally, after a quarter of an hour, he was at the counter. "Name and address?" asked the bored voice of a plump, bespectacled assistant. Draco intoned his name and address in the same bored tone. The gasp that sounded behind him made his nose twitch. Truly, some people... The assistant got his melatonin and Draco laid down the acquired amount of money. For that price, the damned stuff must be effective. After pocketing the pills, he walked out of the crowded place and breathed in the fresh smell of spring. Some birds were chirping in the trees and Draco allowed himself a small smile. Spring was his favorite season. No blisteringly hot days which burned his light skin, nor were there freezing cold days, filled with ice and snow. No, spring was perfect. He shook himself and walked to his car. He pointed his keys and the door unlocked with a bleep bleep sound. Just as he was about to open his door, hurried footsteps sounded behind him and he looked up instinctively. The same man who stood behind him in the line hurried to him, nearly stumbling over his feet as he did so. Draco raised his brow. I was most certainly right about him being clumsy. It's almost endearing. Plus, he looks to be my age. The man came to a halt before him, lightly panting. Are you the Draco Malfoy? The blonde nearly rolled his eyes and casually leaned against his car. The one and only. He was curious as to what the man wanted from him. He knew his company was very famous. He had to thank his father for that. The man blinked at that before a smile curved lips. Thought as such. Oh, here, you let your wallet drop inside. The dark-haired man handed him his wallet with a smile. Draco blinked and took his wallet back, making sure it wouldn't drop again, and directed his own smile to the stranger. Thanks. He turned around and put his hand on the door handle before he frowned and turned back again, head cocked to the side. You know my name, but I don't know yours. Seems a bit unfair, doesn't it? He wanted to know his name desperately. The dark-haired man looked rather startled, but recovered soon enough. He stuck out his hand and Draco grabbed it. My name's Harry. Harry Potter. Draco shook their hands. It's a pleasure to meet you, Harry. Where did you get your marvelous clumsiness from? He was still shaking their hands, and the dark-haired man, Harry, didn't try to let go, but looked rather amused. I wouldn't really know. My parents both died when I was 1. Car accident, you know. I think it's a Harry trait. The blonde laughed while noticing just how green and vibrant those eyes were. God, it should be illegal to have those eyes. Well, Harry, it was nice meeting you. I'm sure we both have something better to do than to stand here still shaking hands, I might add, looking like raving lunatics. Harry rolled his eyes before he moved his hand back, awkwardly standing there. It's nice meeting you too. He shoved his hands in the pockets of his jeans. Well, like you said, we have better things to do than stand here like raving lunatics. Goodbye. With a smile and a nod, he turned around, obviously coming here by foot. Draco clucked his tongue lightly and rolled back on the balls of his feet, bottom lip caught between his teeth. You know, Harry, I should probably thank you properly for returning my wallet, he said loud enough for the other man to hear. Harry turned around, blinking at him. Draco rolled his eyes and pushed away from his car. He opened one door and arched his brow. Come on, let's grab some tea or coffee, whichever you prefer. Unless you should be somewhere. He let the sentence trail off, sincerely hoping he didn't. It had been a long time since someone captivated him as the dark-haired man seemed to do without even trying. The other man looked dumbstruck, so Draco walked to the other end and opened the other door. Look, I even made it easier for you. Either accept or decline, because I most certainly should be going somewhere, but I'm not. So take it or leave it. His lips quirked in a smile when the other man cautiously approached him and took his seat. Draco closed the door with a satisfied thump. He walked back to the other side and took his own seat before he started the car. He put the radio on and grinned when his favorite hit blared through the speakers. He hummed along to the tunes of A Little Less Conversation by Elvis Presley and GXL. Harry's face was priceless when he stepped on the gas and tore down the street. His doctor had prescribed it to him when he told him about it. Often nodded off at A yawn escaped him and he covered it. The familiar prickle of annoyance flew to the throat. He stopped the annoying motion before it had begun. After a minute the cue moved. After pocketing his pills, he pointed his keys at the door. Where did you get your marvelous clumsiness? Harry rolled his eyes. Oh, Harry, I should probably thank you properly. He opened one door and the other man looked dumbstruck. Oh.